We just got another one. Miami Hurricanes have been very busy when it comes to offensive line recruiting in this cycle. They just landed a fourth for the class of 2025. The Great Wall of Mirabal is now larger than the Great Wall of China. Max Buchanan, welcome to the U.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno. I'm a University of Miami alumnus, writer for allhurricanes.com, and co-host of Locked On ACC. Thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. On this busy episode of Locked On Canes, we will talk about what's going on with Miami's wide receiver recruiting because there have been some interesting twists and turns along the way. Is Georgia about to steal a recruit that seemed like a Miami lean for a really long time? We'll talk about where Miami's class of 2025 now ranks as we're, a little over 5 months away from National Signing Day. But let's talk about the newest Miami Hurricanes verbal commit. Another piece in that Great Wall of Mirabal. Miami last night, he committed at the Rivals 5-star event. He did it on a live stream. 4-star offensive lineman Max Buchanan has verbally committed to the Miami Hurricanes. Star offensive lineman out of Sanford Seminole High School, very good program in Central Florida. He chooses Miami over Florida State, Penn State, Clemson, Ole Miss, and UCF. Those were the hats that he had on the table. 6'4", 280 pounds. He's a top 100 prospect in America, according to On3 Sports. So this is a very good player. In fact, Max Buchanan actually becomes the highest rated for what the ratings are worth, right? I take scouting over ratings, but he's the highest rated offensive lineman that Miami has landed in either the 2025 cycle so far, and even going back to the class of 2024 cycle. Miami hasn't landed offensive linemen rated higher than Buchanan since they got those 2 5-stars, Okunlola and Maui Noah, back in 2023. So this is a legit player. Max Buchanan is very highly rated. When he made his live announcement last night on Rivals, he said, quote, "I'm going to go be a Cane." And he put on that Miami hat with the sort of enthusiasm that you always love to see. And Buchanan, by the way, has put out some good content on his social media channels with his family members and close friends. He's put out videos of them, wishing him well and talking about his announcement. This is the type of young man we always want Miami to be recruiting. You guys see when we do those Canes Connection Fridays and we talk to Miami players, sometimes we talk to recruits. Oh, by the way, Luke Nickel is going to join us on a second episode later today. So when we talk to Miami players and Miami recruits, you see just how mature these guys are and what kind of alphas these players are. These are the sorts of personalities to go along with the football talent that Miami has been recruiting. And I think Max Buchanan is going to fit in very, very well in Coral Gables. And he was originally planning to announce his decision in August, but he decided this week to move his announcement forward to last night. Miami had him convinced. He knew he was going to be a Hurricane. Now, as far as the role that Buchanan is going to play at Miami, another common trait among players Miami recruits at any position, including offensive line, of course, is versatility. Versatility is a strength for Buchanan. He plays left tackle at his high school, Sanford Seminole, but he could very well move inside to guard at Miami. In fact, I think on every recruiting service that has scouted Buchanan, they all consider him to be an interior offensive lineman at the next level, even though in high school he has played left tackle, and he's locked that position down at Seminole pretty solidly, I would say. But he is going to cross-train, as every Miami offensive lineman does, but most of the signs seem to be indicating Buchanan is probably going to be a guard once he gets to Miami. his team, Sanford Seminole, they went 10-3 last year in his junior season. They made it to the regional finals of Florida's 4M classification in the playoffs. This player moves very, very well. He's got range and footwork and athleticism, and he's got that sort of big man strength. Get out in space, put you on your butt. He's a bully in the trenches. Buchanan, as mentioned, he's at the Rivals 5-star camp this week. That's where he made his announcement from. In fact, I love seeing our old pal, friend of the show, John Garcia, was out there live with Buchanan when he made his announcement. So it's always nice to see our guy John out there when Buchanan put on that hat, that Miami hat. And Buchanan has been looking really good in the reps and the individual reps that he's taken at the Rivals event. So I think Miami's got a really good one here. Now, I mentioned at the top, very busy offensive line recruiting cycle for the Hurricanes. Buchanan, and it's only June, Buchanan becomes the 4th offensive lineman verbally committed to Miami. Here's what they've got so far. You add Max Buchanan, who's 6'4", 280 pounds. You've already got a couple of giants who probably will play on the outside at tackle positions, like Jaden Wilkerson, 6'6", 330 pounds. Demetrius Campbell, 6'6", 300 pounds. TK Muex, who will play inside, 6'5", 340 pounds. And by the way, because I've already seen this question come up a few times on my X account and on our Locked On Canes Insiders chat, landing Max Buchanan last night absolutely does not mean that Miami isn't still going after S.J. Alufai-Tuli. They are. That'll be the guy they try to land as the 5th offensive lineman in the class. So, yeah, Miami, they're going to be set in the trenches. Obviously, all these players you bring in, if it ends up being a class of 4, probably 5 offensive linemen that Miami is going to sign in December. Of course, development, getting these guys to the next level. But guess what? When it comes to developing players, that's Alex Mirabal, Mario Cristobal. That's the position group they have the best track record in, is developing offensive linemen. You remember Penn Sewell? I remember when Jaden Wilkerson, a week or two ago, when Wilkerson committed to Miami, and he talked about the reasons why. He said, hey, in his mind, the best offensive lineman in the NFL, he's probably right about that, is Penn Sewell. He said, hey, Mirabal and Cristobal, they were the ones to develop that guy. I want to play for them. So developing offensive linemen has never been a problem for the Mirabal-Cristobal connection. And now Max Buchanan joining TK Muex, Demetrius Campbell, Jaden Wilkerson, and hopefully our guy, my favorite offensive lineman in the class, S.J. Alufai-Tuli, joins them at the U very soon. That is Miami's recruiting class at the moment when it comes to the offensive line. Let's talk about Miami's overall class of 2025 at this point. There still is a very long way to go, folks. There's going to be certain players that are going to come off the board, good or bad, later on this week. We'll talk about what may or may not happen tonight and tomorrow. And the month of July is usually a busy one when it comes to players making decisions. And then a lot of these, especially when it comes to the South Florida kids, a lot of them will not decide into the fall. But you look at what Miami has so far. They've got 12 verbal commits. According to the 24/7 Sports composite rankings, which averages out all the other recruiting services, Miami has now the 25th rated class of 2025. Their recruiting class, I'll go in order of the highest ranked recruits. Tight end Brock Schott, running back Gerard Pringle, cornerback Amari Wallace, which was a big get for Miami out of Miami Central, tight end Luca Gilbert, linebacker Ezekiel Marcelin, linebacker Elijah Melendez. Remember, he locked in his Miami commitment last week. Cornerback Timothy Merritt, quarterback Luke Nickel, who, by the way, I feel like is rated a little bit lower on 24/7 Sports than he should be and is on the other sites. Newest commit, interior offensive lineman Max Buchanan, offensive tackle Demetrius Campbell, interior offensive lineman TK Muex, and offensive tackle Jaden Wilkerson. Those are the 12 Miami verbal commits so far, and the Hurricanes at this moment have the 25th rated class of 2025. Are we a little bit nervous about tonight, Thursday night? A Miami target is going to be announcing his verbal commitment, and we're not sure which way this is going to go. We will discuss next. You want to keep it locked. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. And I'm only getting started with the Game Time app. Guys, this is the only ticket app that I use because I'm getting the best deals, the best last-minute prices, and the best features. We got some big events coming to town. The Copa America final is going to be here on July 14th at Hard Rock Stadium. You can get tickets on the Game Time app. You can get $4 tickets for upcoming Miami Marlins games, cheaper than going to the movies on the Game Time app. You can already buy tickets for Miami Dolphins Sunday, September 8th against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They have $98 tickets right now for the Miami Dolphins. I'm telling you guys, you need to check out the Game Time app. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. You could save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. The all-in pricing is a game changer. They show you the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. You can get a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code Locked On College, all one word, Locked On College, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On College for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you so much for making this episode of Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So Miami has landed a big verbal commitment from offensive lineman Max Buchanan, top 100 player in the country, according to On3 Sports. This is a very good get for Miami. Could play tackle, could play guard, probably projected to play guard at the next level, but you know he's going to be cross-training all over that Great Wall of Mirabal when he arrives at Miami in 2025. Now, there is going to be an announcement tonight, and it seems like, unless there's a last-minute change, Chris Ewald Jr. is going to make his announcement Thursday night. There was some chatter earlier this week. Maybe he'll push it back. Maybe that'll happen, but it seems like he's going to go through with the schedule announcement on Thursday night. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm getting nervous about this one. So Chris Ewald, this would be a very important player for Miami to land in this 2025 class. He's from an important pipeline high school at Chaminade Madonna. And most importantly, this is one of the best cornerbacks, one of the best defensive backs in the class of 2025. And that's an area that Miami has put a serious emphasis on in recruiting because you want to really lock up your long-term future at those cornerback and safety positions. So Ewald is a very important recruit. There is some concern tonight as to which way this is going to go. We've known for the past couple of weeks that it's come down between the University of Miami and the Georgia Bulldogs. Those are the only two schools that he took official visits to in this cycle, and he's long said it's going to be the Hurricanes or the Dogs. Most of the momentum he's actually a former Michigan verbal commit, by the way. He was very early in his high school career. He committed there, decommitted after Jim Harbaugh left. So it's really been, Miami and some other area schools in play for him. Georgia has made a late push a couple weeks ago. This one felt like a Miami lock. It's not feeling that way anymore. A lot of folks have said it's really a 50-50 thing, a tug of war. I know our guy Gabby Urrutia at Inside the U yesterday said he's starting to feel some Georgia vibes on this one, but he didn't think Ewald had made his final decision by that point. So this is one of those tonight. I think we're all going to go into this maybe legitimately wondering, is he going to put on the Miami hat or is he going to put on the Georgia hat tonight? But I'm not counting this one as a slam dunk. I'm not taking a victory lap. I'm very concerned as to how this one may go this evening. And of course, even if Ewald did commit to Georgia, Miami would not stop recruiting him. But obviously, when you're talking about going up against a powerhouse program like Georgia, who is the most, actually by blue chip ratio, technically Ohio State is the most talented team in college football right now. But Georgia has been, despite not winning the championship last year, Georgia has been the gold standard for the last handful of years in college football. That is just a ridiculously talented roster and a great team. So it's tough. I mean, if you lose out to Georgia tonight, Miami will not stop recruiting Ewald, but would be difficult to flip that one. So we shall see what happens. But if I told you I wasn't a little bit concerned, I would be lying about that. I want to answer some questions from you guys. By the way, if you want to become a Locked On Canes insider, click the link in the show description below. You can get text messages directly from my phone to yours with breaking news, recruiting scoops, show updates. You can also ask me one-on-one questions on there, and sometimes we ask those Locked On Canes insider questions on the show, and we're going to do a little bit of that right now. We get a question from Hurricane Keys, who said, my question is, what record do you think is the floor to keep the momentum going for a successful top 5 recruiting class of 2024? Of course, winning gets you studs, he says, but Mario has shown in the past winning is not always the key to building the South Florida dream again. Okay, well, I think in the third year, winning becomes more important, because when you're in your first and second season at Miami, talking about Cristobal, you're doing a rebuild. You had to take the wrecking ball to the roster. You can sell the future and the vision. You can still do a little bit of that in the third year, but in the third year, you've really got to be selling immediate results. It's like, hey, this is my third year here. I don't just get to tell you about what's going to happen. I also need to tell you, look what's happening right now. So I believe from a recruiting standpoint, actually winning games becomes more important in the third season than it was in the first and the second season. Recruits want to see results now. So as far as like, okay, the absolute floor for a top 5 type of class, I don't think you can afford to win fewer than 9 games, right? I mean, if you, God forbid, if you go 8-4, could you still land a really good recruiting class? Absolutely. But if you're talking about top 5 class, some of you might say 10, maybe 10 is the floor, but it's right there. 9 or 10 games is what you have to win. And you've got to win some of these important games. The Florida game is very important. Now, I know our pal, the truth teller, often says, like, he really wants to kick Florida's butt. Obviously, I want to blow them out, but I just win. Like, I don't think Miami has to blow them out to build momentum. If you win the game by 1 point or 100 points, just go win that game. That's a really important game. Take care of business against UCF, beat Virginia Tech in that night game. You know, the Florida State game is going to be really important, of course, but yeah, I think right around 9 or 10 wins, I think, would be the floor if you're talking about potentially a top 5 class. Like, okay, you just landed a top 5 class off of 7 wins. I don't think you can do that again in the third year. I think the third year you've got to show better results on the field, if that makes any sense. We get a question, it says, hey, Alex, I love your enthusiasm, but since the transfer portal, I'm often disappointed when a recruit I watched in high school signs with the U, and then we get excited about them, but before we get to see them, they leave via the portal. Do others reflect my feelings? Yes, others reflect your feelings, because college football feels more like a business than ever. But it is. I mean, anytime you've got a sport that generates billions of dollars, how can it not be a business? But yeah, the transfer portal reflects that more than ever before. You're not the only one, right? Every time I do, like, we just welcomed a verbal commit to the U today. Every time I do one of these, a welcome to the U, I get comments on YouTube that are like, well, who cares? It's only June, and who knows if this guy's going to be here in 2 years or in 2 months. Like, you're not the only one that feels that way. I think we all just have to accept a couple of realities, right? In this era of college football, when it's so easy to transfer and jump ship somewhere else, it's inevitable you're going to lose some players that you love. That's number one. At the same time, the better Miami gets, the fewer players you're going to lose. If we start to churn out the results on the field that we think a team that's this talented should be getting, there's going to be less turnover. So you got to hope if Miami wins on the field, you're not going to have as many players jumping ship. And also, if your recruiting gets better, right, fewer players are going to want to jump ship. And then the most important thing you have to remember, guys, you got to focus on the name on the front of the jersey, not on the backs of the jerseys, right? We've been saying that for decades about our favorite NBA and NFL players. Like, you got to focus on the name on the front of the jersey. At the end of the day, if a player leaves, I wish them well. I'm not petty about that stuff. I want these guys to pursue the best opportunities for them. It's fine. But also, my focus is on the players who are wearing the U on their helmet and wearing these orange and green and white jerseys. Like, that is my focus. Who's here right now? So keep your focus on Miami. Keep your focus on the Hurricanes getting better and winning games. Worry more about the team than the individual players. That's really the only advice that I can give to you. Couple things I want to get to here. the wide receiver recruiting board has been an interesting one. We get a couple questions about that. Plus, I'm not ignoring my guy, Kyshawn George. Congratulations to Kyshawn George, who has been drafted. We will talk about him when we come back. He had the first round of the NBA draft last night. I took a little joy in seeing Kyle Filipowski not get drafted from Duke. Maybe I am petty. 2 minutes ago, I said I'm not petty. Well, I'm very petty, just petty about certain things. So we have a lot more to come, my friends. You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Guys, we love this Locked On network, and Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. It's called Locked On Sports Today, and it's here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. We get a question from our guy BP, who says, hey, I don't even know how to answer this. He says, hey, why does it seem like ever since Kevin Beard was recognized as a top 3 recruiter in America, that our wide receiver recruiting class has gone downhill fast and leaving us with no Canes leans at the position? I don't know. Maybe it's like a weird poetic thing. Listen, we're going to talk about Miami's receiver board. There's been a couple of players that, like, surprisingly, Miami has kind of let slip through their fingers, like Nashawn Montgomery, Cortez Mills, most recently decided not even to take his Miami visit. Like, you're talking about some local receivers. There have been a couple of other Miami targets that have kind of surprisingly come off the board to other places this past week. Now, I do know, and by the way, I don't want to make it seem like I'm questioning Kevin Beard, because I'm not. I think you have to zoom out and assume that Beard is playing 4D chess, because he's proven that during his career. I do not doubt Kevin Beard. I don't doubt him as an on-the-field coach. I think he's one of the very best. I watch him very closely at Miami practices. I think Kevin Beard, this guy's a superstar in the coaching ranks. And I don't doubt him in recruiting either. So it's been a little bit weird kind of watching the chess pieces on Miami's wide receiver board. But if you're trying to say that him getting named a top 3 national recruiter, if there's like some sort of a weird karmic thing that happened because of that, I don't know. But it seems like Miami has their eyes on some of the absolute biggest names in the class of 2025, and they understand they're going to need to play the long game to get some of these guys. That some of these guys you're trying to get are going to be difficult to pry them away from other programs, and if you can do that, it's probably not going to happen until the fall. So I think that's where we're at. Someone that at least wasn't a big time Miami target recently. We get a question, hey, is there a chance that Miami can flip CJ Wiley from FSU? He committed FSU. Now, that wasn't like, I think CJ, who's actually a teammate in high school of Luke Nickel, which is interesting. But I think that there just wasn't a whole lot of interest, maybe mutual or from his side in Miami. So, I mean, I'm sure he was once a Miami target, but CJ Wiley had not really been someone Miami had been heavily recruiting for several months at the very least. So I can't tell you I'm surprised he didn't pick Miami. I know since he picked Florida State, our fans are taking notice, but the fact that Miami's not really been in on Wiley for the past several months, no, I don't feel like they're going to flip him from FSU. We get a question that says, hey, how do you see the Miami wide receiver board shaking out? It's been a weird week on that front. So Tyler Williams committed to Georgia recently. Joshua Moore, another big Miami target, committed to Florida. As of a week ago, I really thought that either of them, or maybe even both of them, could end up at Miami, talking about Williams and Moore. My understanding, at least with Joshua Moore, is Miami is going to continue to recruit more, and they're going to fight until December to try to flip him from the Gators. And listen, it's going to be a fluid situation with Florida. Florida's got the toughest schedule in the entire country. A lot of folks believe Billy Napier's seat is warm right now, could get very hot. Anybody who commits to Florida this summer, if things go south with Billy Napier, it's going to be pure, you're going to just drop a nuclear bomb on their entire recruiting board, and anything will be up for grabs. So the Florida situation is fluid. If Napier can actually navigate that schedule and get 7 or 8 wins out of that, then, it's a lot of good vibes up there in Gainesville. But if it goes the other way, if they win 3, 4, 5 games this year, things could get bad. So you have to wonder. And Miami's not going to give up on recruiting Joshua Moore, that's for sure. So the top remaining targets at wide receiver seem to be, I'll give you the top 3 targets right now. Dallas Wilson is currently committed to Oregon. You get kind of lukewarm vibes on whether or not he's actually going to flip from Oregon or not. If he does flip from Oregon, Miami would definitely be the only other place he would seemingly go at this point. But Miami loves Dallas Wilson. Miami loves Jamie French, arguably the top guy in the class, but he is considered a Texas lean. But Miami continues to try to chip away there. And Miami loves Vernell Brown III. Miami's very high on his board, but he is a Gators legacy. They may be tough to beat. So I can understand why folks are like, what's going on at receiver? Because a lot of the guys who seem to be Miami's top targets are not necessarily considered to be Miami leans at this moment. So I'll say what I said earlier. You got to win. If you win on the field, a lot of these problems are going to take care of themselves. So we get a question. I don't even want to answer this because I'm too superstitious. Somebody says, so who's going to be the first big named wideout to commit to the U? I don't like to not answer questions because I'm not a coward, but my superstition outweighs my courage. So I'm not going to answer that because I don't want to make it sound like I'm dropping any Donno balls that, Miami's going to get French or Wilson. Let's wait and see. Receiver recruiting, to me, results on the field are going to matter a lot. Huge congratulations to Kyshawn George. Selfishly, I wish he was playing another year with the Hurricanes, but George had a one-and-done season at Miami. Very versatile, talented combo guard with an awesome shot. And, by the way, some of the best hair in the business. I wish I had hair like Kyshawn George. I wish I had any hair. I wish I had hair like anybody. But Kyshawn George was looking snazzy last night at the first round of the NBA draft, and some folks were doubting if he would be a first-round pick. His decision to leave early, I suppose, was validated by being drafted number 24 by the Washington Wizards. So Kyshawn George is a Wizard now. I don't root for any teams that are not the Miami Heat, but I always have a soft spot for my Canes. So Kyshawn George, consider me a fan of yours at the next level as well. And congratulations for being a Wizard. Guys, as I mentioned earlier on in the show, this is not going to be our only episode today. Late afternoon, probably early evening, we're going to be chatting with Luke Nickel, Miami Hurricanes 4-star quarterback verbal commit. And now I got something else to talk about with Luke, because Miami just picked up another large man who will be protecting him in the trenches. So they're surrounding Luke with offensive linemen in this class. So we'll talk with Luke. And there's a lot to talk about with Nickel because, he had his official visit to Miami a couple of weeks ago. He had his excellent performance at the Elite 11 camp, where he was ranked one of the Elite 11 quarterbacks at that camp. He performed very well. So we have a lot to get to later today. Join us again with Luke Nickel. We'll talk to you then on another episode of Locked On Canes, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.